My name is James Renford Powell, and this is the Core Concepts Lectures. This is sponsored by the Institute of Applied Metaphysics, the Church of Revelation, and One Community. And we are bringing to the city of Memphis speakers who are involved in various spiritual disciplines, and they are telling us what they believe, why they believe it, and what they're doing about it. And today our guest is Norma De Jesus. Norma has had a number of experiences with shaman in South America and has had some experiences in Hawaii, and she's here today to tell us about that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I am really excited to talk about my experiences and traveling and the journeys in shamanism specific as well. One of the reasons why I think that I get so excited about it is because there's a lot of, still to this day, there's a lot of misconception regarding the shamanism, and so this is a great opportunity for me to shine some light to it and make it a little lighter. I'm going to sit down and we're going to start this way. One of the things that I would like to do is I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the experiences that I had, specifically in Kauai, the last one, and Hawaii and Peru, because they were very profound for me. They were catalysts for change as well, and they were part of a quest, self-discovery sort of journey that I've been taking, and it's been taking me a long time. This has been going on for about 5 years of constant travel and journeys and involvement with the shamanic practices at different levels. What I would like to do is to set a frame of reference for shamanism for those of you who may not be so familiar with shamanism. And shamanism is really a spiritual practice. It's not a religion. It's a set of principles and a system of methods, if you will, and that are very remarkable. And the reason why I think they are very remarkable is because they are very ancient. And we have, when we look back, we have ancestors that were thousands and thousands of years ago. We have actually, there is archaeology evidence of that date as back as 40,000 years ago of practices of shamanism. And one of the things that I found interesting is that these ancient people discovered many ways to maximize our potential, our human potential, our capabilities concerning the mind as spirit, and mostly for healing and problem solving. So they discovered these abilities and they use this potential for practical use. So it's not something that is mystical and it's sitting in a corner and not apply. It's something that you apply, that you can apply it in a very practical use. Every day they would use it for problem solving. One of the things that I found very interesting, it is that the shamans, they would, it was a common practice for them to go and connect to the third world. And they would do it to the third level, or the middle level is what we should do, we should say. And they would do that in order to see where the source of sustenance at that moment would be, meaning the deers or the buffaloes, they would go in and connect, and then the hunters would go to that location and find them. So it was something very special and very respected, very, that had a lot of respect with the community, because it was important. It was important for their survival, not only for the shaman, but for the whole tribe. And so I think that's something that to look into when we explore shamanism, and the roots of it. The core principle of shamanism, it's a beautiful thing. I connect very strongly with it because it's something that honors, if you will, and acknowledge a spirit in every living thing. So it's like you are working with a living world constantly, that connection, living energy. The tree has an energy, has a spirit. The rock has a spirit. The river has a spirit, and there's an interaction in this way that takes place when you are there's an awareness, and when you are involved in this practice. Again, this is a core principle of shamanism, and it can be viewed as a radical thing for many, because what does is it leads to this concept. It is that it views the human being as equal, an equal basis to all living creatures and to all spirits. So for many, there's not that sense of dominance, that the human being trying to dominate Earth or the creatures. Is more of a sense of coexistence and collaboration with living nature. And so that's one of the things that resonates more strongly with me. I think it's very enriching for anybody that maybe they're not necessarily wanting to be a shaman, but they can adapt some of the practices like that one. At this point in time, we need it. And this is the kind of principles that we really need the most at this time, connecting to Mother Nature at the time and present that we are in. The laws, therefore, that are followed by the shamans are pretty much based on laws of spirit, if you will, in that sense. I'm gonna pass this. As they strive, again, like I said, to live in balance and harmony and coexistence. One of the functions of the shamans usually is that they go into an altered state of consciousness to access other worlds, the realities that are out of this time and space. And they're very adept at doing that. They do it in a conscious way. It's a conscious decision that they take to do this. And they go into these hidden worlds that we normally know as through myth, dreams, and so many people experience them when they have a near-death experience. And so it's a world that is inhabited by spirits, and they establish a relationship, a connection with spirits, and that they do this in order to obtain information that may be useful. They go into the journey with a purpose. That's another basic principle as well. They go with a purpose. They go in a quest. They go to obtain information that can be useful, whether for the community or for a specific individual, and for healing as well, to facilitate healing. One of the things that they do, and this is common in just about every shamanistic practice that you see all over the world, is that they use sound. The use of sound is very basic to the shamanic practices. Most of them, and we know this because of, especially here in the U.S., because of the Native Americans and so on, we're used to the drumming. And the drum is something, that is used to entrain the brain, into a deeper state, or theta brainwaves. So the reason why they do that is because we want to access this state, because this is a state where we are receptive. We are more receptive to go into this world and to use our imagination, which is a part of a basic part of it, of the journeys that they take. Another common denominator and through all the tribes and different traditions is the three worlds. They see the world in three levels, and one of them is the lower world, and for so many they call it underworld. Many of us know it as underworld, and in this level what you access is a very tribal energy. The spirits that are inhabited in that you connect to in that journey through the lower world is mostly connected, has a very deep connection to Mother Earth, and this is a place where you want to go, maybe to face fears and to access that type of healing and empowerment. And then you have the middle world, which is just about this world that we are having right now, but there's spirits that are more tangible in there and ready to work with us. So that's the difference, between that world and this one. And then we go to the upper world, and the upper world is a place mostly of bright light. And many people associated with the angelic beings, and this is the world where you reach and you have you access wisdom and teaching. So those are the three levels that most of the shamans access. And what is interesting is also that you can travel from one to another through the journeys, but what I have noticed in many of the shamans that I have contact with is that what I see is that some of them sort of specialize it in one specific world. I have known shamans that specialize in the underworld. I just recently had an experience last year in Puerto Rico where I went to visit this shaman, a lady shaman, and she had, oh my God, it was so amazing, because as soon as you would go into her place of work, you knew you were going down. She had it way down. You had to go downstairs. It was below, the ground level, and you would see, all the environment and everything. It would give you, the energy was so predominant there that it was amazing. And then in Peru, I had an experience that was very powerful with one of the shamans that specializes in the upper world. And I will be talking about that experience in just a little bit, because it was a very profound experience for me. And so, but I wanted to kind of give you, a little bit of a set frame of reference, really, for that. And another thing is that they have in common is obviously the shamanic journeys. That's how we usually know it here in the States. A lot of them call it ceremonies. South Africa, throughout South America, they call it ceremonies. And what they do is that they take you into a outer state of consciousness, trance-like state, and you're able to go into these different worlds, depending what your quest it will be. So advisable would be for anybody who would like to take a journey, first to take it with somebody and need a companion and somebody leading, and secondly to have a question, have a motive, have a reason for taking the journey, because that's what's going to drive your quest. And the helpers that you may find along the way, that's what they're going to lead you to. So otherwise it would be scattered. I think that another thing that they have in common, it is the healing. And the healing takes place in many different contexts and levels. And there's many practices. You can, for example, here I also know that soul retrieval is a common practice, and that stems from the belief that when you have a illness, they look at you and they see if it's where is it at the emotional level and the physical level, and they believe that any illness, it's a soul loss. There's a soul loss. So your soul fragments, and it mostly happens with specifically with it's trauma. When we have a trauma, our soul tends to, part of ourselves tends to leave in order to cope with that, and that's it's a defense mechanism in psychology. Is called disassociation. And so when they do soul retrieval, what they do is they lead you on a journey. They go into the world, sort of whatever world your that part may be, and they searching, for that part of your being, and try to bring healing to that part of yourself, and in order to bring wholeness. So that's the part of soul retrieval. So far, any questions that you would like to ask?
Is there a great difference between what you found in the South American or the Puerto Rican shaman or the American shaman?
Yeah, there are some differences. In South America alone, there's so many traditions it's like a melting pot. There's so many traditions. They have, for example, the Inca shamanism or healing system, and I specifically connect very strongly, and I'm trained with the Queros. And the Queros are a tribe in Peru that lives in the mountains, and they still live in the ways that people would live 100 years ago. They don't, no cars, you have to go it's 3 or 4 days journey just to get there, and through horse or a mule or something like that, through the mountains. And to this day, if there's something wrong with them, they have a mountain, and they go and they pray to the mountain, and they go and they get herbs or whatever, they feel. And so that's a different way. And their ceremonies are different too. They connect very strongly with Mother Earth, and the whole system is based on Mother Earth and the relationship with the earth. And so yeah. And then, for example, the one that I just mentioned to you in Puerto Rico, so it was a whole different practice, the way that they actually transmit, and do the healing work is very different. For example, again, the Queros, they would do a ceremony where they would pray, and they would do offerings to the earth and the spirits as a reciprocity. They go, that's a very strong principle within that tradition, reciprocity. And so, and this journey doesn't necessarily have, they go into the outer state of consciousness, but it's not really driven by the drums, and it's a very different thing. Again, they do the offering, and that's their ceremony, that's their journey. They bring things like flowers and shells and all that, and that's their ceremony. And then you have somebody else, like in Puerto Rico or even there in Peru, that would take you with a rattle and take you in a specific journey, and would, for example, it can cleanse your aura, with just the rattle of the drum and so on. So there is difference. Even in the same country, you have a. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
It was very. It was. I want to say just a few details, and one is that years ago, way before that, 11 years exactly, before I went to Hawaii, I got this book. I bought this book It's called Initiation by Elizabeth Jenkins. So I bought this book and I felt drawn to the book, but I knew it was not for me to read. You know, it was not for me to read at that moment, but there was something so mystical and so powerful about the book. So I moved a couple of times in those 11 years, and a lot of the books, I organized the books in boxes and all that, and that book always stayed in my shelf. It was never boxed up, and I would pass by, I'm like, yeah, the book, but I never picked it up. And so the opportunity came along to go to this place in Hawaii, where there was gonna be a training, and it was coming Juan Núñez del Prado, which is a known anthropologist in Peru, and he's one of the really people who have put out there, you know, the ancient, the Inca tradition, and the Quero specifically as well. So I am in touch, you know, to get to this seminar and workshop, and I'm so excited about it. I feel this very drawn, you know, this draw very powerful. And I have a friend, I was going with a friend, and my friend said, she can be a psychic, she's a psychic, and she said, you have a book, you have the book that is necessary to read for, you know, the pre-work, for the pre-requirement to, if you will, for the workshop is on your shelf. And I go, I'm like, I can find it. But what happens is that she had a different title, because the book has been edited and reprinted and all that. And as I'm looking, this book fell off the shelf. Now, I have been exchanging for about a month or two with Elizabeth Jenkins, because she's the one hosting the seminar, and actually in her house. I'm gonna stay in her house, right? And so the book fell off the shelf, and I'm like, oh, that book, and then I see the man, you know, Peru, and I'm like, oh my God. And when I look, it says Elizabeth Jenkins. And I'm like, huh. I go to the computer, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, it's that book. So I had this book for 11 years, and it's about her journey and about this. So this is how synchronistic, you know, that this is part of the synchronicities that I experienced in this trip. It was so unique. And so I ended up going to Hawaii. So in Hawaii we had this amazing training, and so we're really highly sensitized. And I remember in one point we were doing a ceremony, and I literally saw this hummingbird, you know, in a flower, and I say, oh my God, Elizabeth, there was a hummingbird when we were meditating. Elizabeth is like, there's no hummingbirds in Hawaii. I saw one. And so I'm very, very sensitized. Now, when we were planning the trip, I felt a very strong calling to go to a site, and we were deciding, you know, what to do after the training. And so I was drawn to this site, which is the Article Falls. It's a main touristic
Which island?
in Hawaii,
The Big
Big Island. And so I felt it very strongly. So so we decided to go after the training. Now, before that, during that day, I had met with Sandra Basud, which was assistant Elizabeth Jenkins at that time, and she is from Kenya, and she is amazing with the didgeridoo. So I had a session, we sit down, you know, I do sound therapy, and I love, and she had balls, crystal balls there, so I started to play with the balls, and she started to play with the didgeridoo, and the next thing that I know is I'm laying down. And she's giving me the treatment with the didgeridoo, and it was very, very powerful, and I was so sensitized after 5 days of ceremonies constantly, you know, and connecting to earth and taking you into different states, you know. So I left, and about 10 minutes or 15 minutes after I left, I started weeping. I couldn't control the crying. So it obviously had opened up, you know, and it didn't happen right away. It just kind of integrating, you know, for a while. And I'm like, oh, I can't drive now because I'm crying so much. And so anyway, this is what happens in the way to the waterfalls, okay, to this waterfall that I was drawn originally to go. So when we get there, I'm so happy, you know, we got our mesas and all that, and we go and I'm like, oh my God, it's beautiful. But I don't know why I was so, I mean, it's beautiful, definitely, and I feel the spirit, but I don't know why, you know, I was drawn here. But then I saw there was there's a trail, and then I saw that there was a lot of people taking there was a shortcut to the trail that people were taking. And it was like the most normal thing. You go see the waterfall, just stay there, get the picture thing and all that. And then you take the shortcut. So when my friend went in, and a lot of people, it was very busy. And when I go into the shortcut, immediately, it was like, what I experienced, I always said, is like, you know, when you go in a room and everything is kind of dark, and all of a sudden the lights are on, happy birthday! that is similar to the sensation that I experienced there, because when I went in, the whole area just light up. And I could see the rays of lights hanging down from these branches of the tree and the colors. And it was amazing. I could see that everybody, I get a little touch still to this day when I think about it, because everybody that was taking that shortcut was being bathed by these rays, you know. I mean, it was getting some sort of healing, you know, energy. And so what happens is I start to see the colors, you know, in the branches, and all of a sudden there was a spirit, you know, that came to me and say, it's time for you, it's time for your healing. I say, oh my God, but there's a lot of people passing through. I say, no one will enter now. And she circled. It was a female energy, and very ethereal, you know, in nature. And she circled. It was a circle. It was like a ring of trees, very old, ancient trees. And so she circled this area, and I could see it, I could feel it, and no one came in. And so I was there, and I don't recall everything, you know, because I went to some state. And what happens is, I remember there were like a flat slab, you know, that you could maybe think that had been used as an altar in the past, because, you know, that's not usual shape. And I was drawn to put my forehead there. And when I put my forehead there, I could feel the energy coming from the bottom, you know, from my feet up. And I started to shake. And that's when I I don't remember all of it, you know, but I know that I was in conversation with the spirit the whole time. And what I was told was I was getting some sort of healing that needed to take place. And some sort of preparation. So the next thing that I remember is that I'm sitting down in the tree trunk, and I was led to pick up a stone, and I felt so light, and I mean, it was just amazing. And then when when the time, you know, was ending, she said, we're done, you know, it's finished. And it is complete. And as soon as she said that, people started to pass again, come to there. So I figured I've been here about 5-10 minutes, 15 at the most, you know. So I go out and I'm like in this cloud, and my friend is like, Norma, oh my God, I'm starving. You have been there for an hour or so. So I have been, you know, in what kind of ceremonial journey it was for that. So that was a very powerful experience, because I was able to actually, I had the training, and then I had firsthand, you know, experience, and able to explore and experience myself, the connection and the contact with the spirits and the energy. And so it kind of expanded my awareness, and it changed my whole concept, you know, of energy and the living world around me. And so I love trees.
someone said they had a question. Can you say that?
Yeah, you mentioned soul retrieval and disassociation.
Mm-hmm.
I know children sometimes go through things and the way they survive is through disassociation. So I was wondering, do they necessarily, okay, so when you do the soul retrieval, do you really, I don't know, how does that happen where they can go back and, well, won't that memory come back with that or whatever?
Yes, but healed. See, because what happens it is the intensity, it's a shock, and that's why that happens, that disassociation or the fragmented, spirit goes. But when you get the soul retrieval, number one is something that you do with the purpose of being whole, bringing wholeness into you. So you don't want to do it just because. You want to do it in a time where you perhaps have a certain awareness and a certain maybe resilience and strength that you know that you'll be capable to go through it. You will know it's the right time for you to do it. So the soul retrievals, and I know that a lot of people talk about them, and this is not something that you do a lot. This is something that you may do once or twice in your lifetime, to bring that wholeness. But yeah, the disassociation happens because that's the way, the mechanism, of us to survive, to cope with whatever it is. It's too strong. And so once that the emotional charge, it can be taken, so it's easier to work with it many times,
So that would be a particular thing that you would go or seek to have healed.
Yes.
Is to,
Yeah, because especially when if they are very traumatic experiences, trauma is something, it's relative, because what can be traumatic for one person, it might not be traumatic for the next one. But when you have a shock like that, what happens is that it's always there.
Yeah.
So you are aware that
and
you have.
And I know as a child, I don't care how old you are, when you have that shock, emotionally you remain at that level.
Yes.
So to grow or to move on, you have to, I guess, deal with it or face it.
Yeah, and usually the shaman would help you, because what they do is they actually go and they see, they experience, what it is and how they can help you to bring it back and in a safe way, and to they normally also give you some instructions for the aftermath, for afterwards, different things to do, so that you can, bring it and incorporate and integrate that wholeness. Does that answer?
Yeah,
okay.
That's very interesting.
Now, how did this compare with the work you did in South America?
Okay, so the what do you mean by this?
How did the experience, the Hawaiian, the Puerto Rican, the other compare to because in some case there you're kind of translating, you're doing some work for them.
Yeah, right? I have done some work for them. But the first experience that I had in South America was specifically in Peru, in Machu Picchu. And again, the Hawaii experience was very connected, even though that it was years later and when I went to Peru, because it was based on a healing system, that was coming from Peru. So it has to do with the Incas, and so in the Andean shamanism. So when I went to Peru, it was kind of a completion, for me. I wanted to go deeper and explore deeper that. It was totally different because I was there. When I was in Hawaii, I went to a workshop where you have the elements are controlled, and you're sure just certain parts that are just the appropriate ones for whatever is the training it was. And when I went to Peru, I felt the need to go. And this was something very specific because within 2 weeks I was in Peru after I felt the urge, you know, the need to go. And again, a friend that was the one also who went to Hawaii. Oh no, I'm going with you. I'm going with you. In Peru, specifically, and what I do when I go into these journeys, what I do more than just shamanistic, you know, work and exploration. But when I go with I try to go with no preconceived notions. So the least amount of what I can know about the place, the better is for me. Because that way I don't have, you know, that in the middle. And so when I went there, I knew, because in Hawaii, the teacher in Hawaii was very adamant about not, somebody mentioned ayahuasca actually in there, and I had never heard of it. I never heard of ayahuasca, I didn't know what it was, and I was kind of a little, I had my, you know, my little attitude and resistance to anything that would lead me to an outer state. Any use of plants or herbs or any substance, you know, like that.
Can you describe
ayahuasca
for the benefit of the
yes.
viewers and
Ayahuasca is a vine that is, you know, from Brazil, from South America, and what they do is they make a brew with that vine, and they actually it's two plants actually that are used, and they make this brew and you take it. But this is the traditional way of doing it is for healing. It's a very sacred and very powerful ceremony. And so you take this, and what it does is it has a lot of, it has some properties, you know, the DMT actually, they call it, I believe, that it helps you to go into an outer state of consciousness, and you actually expand your consciousness immensely.
And DMT gives a very, very brief, very quick experience, but not drug.
No, it's not drug. And so what happened is when I was in Hawaii, somebody mentioned it to the teacher, and the teacher was very opposed to it, and I had never heard of it. And so, and I thought, okay, it's a drug, I don't, you know, I'm not going, but something in me, that curiosity, you know. So as soon as I got home from Hawaii, you know, I was in that computer. Ayahuasca, checking to see what it was. And when I started to look, you know, what it was, it just kind of felt like it's something that maybe I want to try then, you know. But I also knew that there's a lot of tourism, you know, ayahuasca tourism, if you will. And I didn't want that. I wanted to do it in the real traditional way that is done with somebody, but I didn't know anybody there. So there's another story, another synchronicity. And so what happens is that night I'm reading and I'm looking, and I came across this article that was beautiful written about ayahuasca, and I wish I remember his name. I can't remember his name right now, but this gentleman was writing about him, the experience of him and his daughter doing the ceremony together, and that was the gift that he gave her when she turned 21 years old. And so when you view it in that way, it's like, oh wow, okay, I think I'm onto something here. And so I liked it so much, and I have never done this before in my life, never have done it after yet anymore. I wrote to him. The article was so beautiful. I wrote to him and I said, you know, I'm to go to Peru and I would like to know about this, if you can give me a reference or something, so because I don't want to be in a tourism environment for ayahuasca. So he wrote back to me and connected me with his daughter, who spent a year and a half in South America after that. And she spent time in a tribe, with a tribe called the Chipibos in there. And so I got the information, and I left for Peru and contacted somebody that they gave me. And when I left for Peru, I haven't even heard from them. you know. So when I'm in Peru, I heard from them, and I ended up in the Peruvian Amazon.
The Peruvian what?
Amazon. I went to the Peruvian and stay with the Chippewas then, like five days there, and experience that. But my point on bringing this, it is that I tried it, you know. I went and I experienced it in different ways. And so it completely changed my view, you know, of what it was. And I had a great experience doing that. So the shamanistic practices that I experienced there were many, you know. In just one trip, I experienced all that in just one trip. I had an experience in Cusco where I connected through somebody else. I connected through a shaman in there who is not somebody who advertised or anything like that, you know, who works, who's one of my teachers now. And I had my first ayahuasca experience was with them. And I did it in the Sacsayhuaman ruins, which is Inca ruins, you know, and it's like a sundial of energies there in that place. And when I did that there, I didn't even know where I was. Really. He told me, I'm going to take you to a very special place. But because I didn't want to do so much research about where I was going or anything, I didn't know the importance of the ruins. But there's certainly something that you feel and see, you know, once that you get there. So in comparison with the experience of Hawaii and Puerto Rico, which was the original question, so it's many, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot of difference. Even within the same country, like I said before, you have different practices. Some people use the ayahuasca, some people don't.
Can you talk about what the experience was like?
About the ayahuasca?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, first of all, the gentleman, like I said, it was he came over with the guide that I had, the gentleman that was helping me and connect us, and he was really checking me out. Seriously, he was checking me out to see if he wanted to work with me, and that's how he does his work. And then, so because of that, I would remain very quiet. I barely spoke. And he's like, you don't speak much. And I'm like, nope. In these kind of situations, I tend not to. So anyway, I agreed to do the ceremony with him. And so he did the brew. And here I am because you do it usually at night, you know, it's a whole night journey. And so I go and here I am going with this gentleman, and he had a helper that came from the jungle, and he walked like 4 days to get there. And this is, I had the pictures, young, probably 20, 21, 22, you know, years old, and he was his apprentice, and he had, you know, this, things, you know, the tribal things that they use, and he had jaguar teeth on him and all kinds of things, and paint, you know, looked like a Kipling, you know, Jungle Boy or something. And but you can feel the energy from this person. It was fierceless, you know, you can tell it was fierceless. And so he brought the leaves, coca leaves actually, which is something that is used there to first acclimate. You know, they do the tea for acclimation, and he specifically had you chew the leaves because it has a lot of proteins and nutrients that help you through the journey, because it's a long journey, and you're supposed to be on. He said I was to be in fasting, you know, when you go into it, and so. When I'm going about 6, it was like 6 or 6:30 at night, you know, in the evening, and I'm climbing this hill, you know, in the mountains, because everywhere you go there, you gotta hike. You gotta hike a hill, a mountain or something, you know, and so I was hiking with this gentleman, his apprentice, and the guide, and I'm like, oh, and all of a sudden, you know, the thought, you know, I was like, oh my God, I am going up this mountain to to get into a state, you know, that who knows where I'm going to be, or how I'm going to be. And I don't know these people that I'm going with, and I'm going with 3 males.
Yeah.
You know, what on the world am I thinking? But that tells you, because I'm very cautious, you know. So that tells you the state that I was in. It was total trust and total faith, you know, when I went. And amazingly, I was walking behind, and the shaman Atahualpa that was walking ahead of me, he caught my thought, and he turned back to me, and he said, I need you to know that we are men clean of spirit, clean of mind, and clean of heart, and that you will be okay, because it's important that you trust in the process, you know? And I was like, okay. So I was like, if I had to run here, I don't know which way is not the jungle, you know what I mean? That was my thought all along. So anyway, so we had 2 dogs along going with us, and the 2 dogs were just like really playful and barking and all that. And then he took me, we passed, you know, the main place for the ruins and stuff, and then he took me, it was a cave, but it wasn't completely covered, you know. It had stones in the front, and you could see the sky, and they had it lined up completely in eucalyptus leaves, and that's where we lay down for the ceremony. And one thing that caught my attention also was that the dogs that were all barking and playing, as soon as we got there, one took the position right in front of the cave, and another one took the position in front of, on top of the cave, and that was it. You never heard the dogs again the whole night. So they were just, you know, guardians. And so then my experience began by him, you know, talking, and we did some tobacco. They use tobacco for, you know, to communicate and to cleanse. And then I took the brew. And what was interesting, I had been in a raw diet for like 6 months before I got there, because I was preparing for my trip. This trip for me, when I took it, it was for me to go beyond my fears. That was my motive, you know, my personal motive for the trip. So, and I wanted to go beyond that, and I wanted to come back as the most brave person that I knew. That's how I wanted to come back, with this, feeling the strongest person I know is me, you know, inside, you know. And so, so now you know why I was walking that mountain, going beyond my fears, you know. And so we took the brew, and what happened is the person that was the guy that was doing the journey with me, I said, "You're gonna take it, right?" I guess so. And so he took, and I took, and within 5 to 10 minutes, he was, you know, because it cleans you. What it does is it takes whatever is in your body and brings it right out. And so he went, oh, you know, there. And I was like, he was vomiting and all that, and I was like, oh, God. And I don't have, but the thing it is with me, I didn't have a frame of reference, because I don't do, you know, I don't do any recreational drugs like that, and to that extent, so I didn't have anything to compare it with, you know. So I asked the shaman, so what is the difference between doing this and doing, let's say, mushrooms or whatever, you know, things that I know of people that use it. And he said, well, this is not this is not a drug, it's not a recreational drug. This is something that you do with a purpose, with an intention for healing, for whatever it is that you want to do. I said, so you do this often? And he said they don't. They do it only when they have somebody for healing.
So the one who got sick, did he not have a purpose?
He never had done it before.
Okay.
And so he got sick, and then he comes back, you know, and time passes, and I started to feel the effect of it, you know, and I just started to relax, and I started to feel it, and it's very unique in the experiences that I have, because you feel it coming from the feet, you know, up, the body. That's how it works. It's amazing. That's how it works. And then I started to feel very cold. You know, I started to feel very cold. And it took me about hour and a half before I had the need to go and you know, I don't know how to say it, vomit. And what happened, but it wasn't that much, I guess, because I had done that diet, you know, before, and I was clean in terms of the physical body, very much. And so, I did, and that, I remember the part of the experience was seeing, you know, I was seeing so many things, and so, I mean, it was just, I saw a lot of what they show as the fractal, you know, I saw that, the geometry, I saw that, and then one of the things that I also experienced was that I saw my life sort of in front of me like a movie. Like a movie ribbon playing, you know, and it was very unique because I was not involved in it, so I was able to experience that, to see it from sort of a outside point of view, and be more objective in many things. So it helped me to clarify a lot of things that I needed to at that time, and the fears, because I had fears, you know, people were associating, you open the gates, you opening portals, you know, and you're gonna see things, and I really didn't experience anything, in my experience, I didn't experience anything that was so scary. I saw things that they would scare me normally, but I didn't feel scared about it in the journey, you know, that normally would cause a reaction on me. And at that time, no. And then after that, it won't it won't cause that same reaction. So I got, you know, what I needed from.
But making one sick at their stomach is something that is part of the cleansing process, yes. I guess, and that takes place with everybody.
Yes, it does. It does. And then most people, you know, there's instances where you don't do it, but there are not that many, but there are out there. And then then after that, it was, oh my God, I was like, oh my God, this is how long does it last? It's like 5 hours. I was like, this is the longest 5 hours of my life. But then I would go on times, you know, like in the journey, and then I would come back, you know, so it was like that. It was a beautiful experience. And then, again, it expanded my consciousness. And after that, I became more sensitized as well, and able to see, you know, more things and experience things. It expanded my awareness, you know, daily life.
Now, did that enable you to do some of the like translation work or go-between work you were doing between the South American and the American shaman?
I'll say the question again, please.
Did that enable you in some way? Is that why you did I think there's one occasion with the Hopi and where you were doing some interceding work or translation work or.
Well, actually, that happens very naturally. You know, they just when I was with the Hopi, it was just natural that happened. For some reason, there was a translator there actually, but for some reason there was an affinity. I guess because I understand the work, and I guess I believe that interpreter that was there at that time specifically for the Hopis didn't have necessarily the experience, you know. So there was some things that were kind of lost in the translation. But in South America, with the other shamans, that they just ask me, they normally just ask me to translate for them. I guess that they relate, they see, you know, that you can connect to that level, and that you have a certain awareness and understanding of what the work is. Yeah. Then after that ceremony that I did, and I remember in the morning I was like, oh my gosh, and I'm supposed to go down that hill now. I was thinking, it's like, how do you go down that hill now? I could see, you know, still see things, and there's some sort of plant there that is like, has a lemony, citrusy kind of smell, and he brought them like that, and he put them on my taxi, and I breathed through that, and it was just like coffee in the morning. I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna walk. So it was very refreshing, you know, and very, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was that specific journey. I saw a lot of beings. I saw a lot of angelic beings as well, and it was a beautiful feel to it. It was a beautiful flow to it. It was gentle.
Was there anything like a mission that came out of it, a feeling of what you had to accomplish, what you did, what this was all about?
Yeah, I did. I have a little kind of a glimpse, you know, of what I was set here to do. And then after that morning, I go to the hotel to rest, you know, and within like 4 or 5 hours after that, I was gone to the next journey. And I met some other shaman there, and that was also another synchronistic experience, because this other shaman that we went and visit, I didn't want my friend to miss the whole day, you know, because I did the ceremony, she didn't do it. So I got up, and I was okay, because that's one of the things also that after the ayahuasca, you feel clear and energized, you know, afterwards. And so we went on to this town, which is like, I think it's like an hour away from Cusco. And it's a town that is known because there are a lot of shamans that live in the town. It's a shaman's town, practically. And so we went there, we took a taxi drive, you know, and went there. And this was just hilarious, because we go there and it's like in the you know, like those all Western movies. And you go and it's all dusty, all houses, you know, woods, and people looking, peeking through the windows as you pass, you know, and the taxi driver couldn't pass any farther because there was some kind of something in the plumbing in the road. And so here we go with the backpacks and hike up the street. And as we're hiking up the street, we're heading to go to see this guy. We don't even know this shaman, you know. My friend have heard of him, and he's known internationally. And so he travels as well. So we don't even know if he's there. We don't know where he lives. We just know his name and that he's in that section, you know. That's where he ought to be. So we're walking, and I'm asking people as we go along, the ones that peek through the window in Spanish. But you know, it was funny because my friend, she's American, and she was relaying the name to me, and I was relaying the name as she was telling me, but really it was not the correct name. I found later. But it was enough, you know, to get us by. So the thing is that I am going up the hill walking, and there comes this gentleman, and somebody gave us a map and say, well, if you go into this town, you want to know, you know, where you go, the good shamans, you know, because there's different practitioners there. So they gave us a map of a couple of locations with the good, you know, the shamans that I wanted to contact with. So I am going up, and I see this gentleman coming down, and I saw him, probably because the ayahuasca still, I saw him with this blue light all around him. He was shining this beautiful blue light, and I was just like happy. I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful being, you know, coming down, it's good. And so he came down, he was laughing from the far, and I asked for the other shaman. And he took us to say, yeah, I'll take you to the teacher. And he took us straight to the house of this other gentleman. And he called, and he knocked the door, and the shaman answered. I mean, what are the chances of that? So we go in, and something I didn't say before, it was that at that time, I was a little with cleanliness, you know. I was a little, I don't know how to say, particular with cleanliness. And so we go in, and he received us, and he took us in, and he said actually he was waiting for us, you know, which was amazing. And so we go in, and I'm vegetarian. And the first thing that I see, he has a condor hanging on the wall, you know, because that's the animal, the power that he works with. He works with the upper world. And I was like, oh my God. So he started to read the coca leaves, and then he said he wanted to do energy exchange ceremony, atom carbide, they call it, to us. And I said, okay. So the next thing that I know is that he's taking this bottle of Florida water or something like that, and he's like, spit all over you, to cleanse you. And I was like, oh my God. It's like cleanse. And but it was amazing, because even though I was experiencing that, I could feel the effect of it in my field as well. And so I go in, and he took me. I remember he took me, and we did like I felt we were dancing, and I experienced something I had never experienced before. We were lifted off the ground, and I just felt like there were stars. We were going into I experienced the upper world with him. It was just amazing, and my friend was there the whole time too, seeing experiences. So she had her turn to do it as well. And then the next thing is that he tells me, so now you put your head with the condom. I was like, really? And so these are the times, and I did. I got some transmission actually as a result of that. So it was an amazing experience. So that's in a nutshell that experience. And then I went through some other shamans. I discovered there's an underground school of shamanism there, and he actually connected me to them. And so I was able to explore a little farther, and then I got connected with the person at the Peruvian Amazon with the Shipibo tribe, and I head that way.
What was the reason for the underground necessity for being an underground shaman?
I really am not sure, but I think it is because, again, the tourism, so that they are not out there exposed like that. So it's more of a very, very traditional ways, and you won't find it unless you know somebody that is in it. And I think it's because of that. It's a way, I guess, of protecting the traditions.
How much time have we got?
Yeah, time.
Any other questions?
How has this created more for your life?
Well,
How is this translated into your everyday life, I guess?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, for once, I came back, and I remember coming back, and especially after the jungle, because that really pushed me beyond the boundaries of my comfort zone, and pushed me beyond beyond my fear. Just the sleeping setting alone, it was enough, for me to let all those walls, resistance to fall. And so, and I started to see the world more as, other things in the world, animals and everything more of collaborative, as instead of fear them or resisting them, open to that. And so, and once that happens, it changes you. It changes you inside, because you are more compassionate, you're more kind. You're not so afraid, all those fears just gone away. And what it does is that you open, like I am now. I'm telling you all kinds of things and details, and I'm truly open, to and that really, when you think about it, there's a vulnerability, when you open yourself that way, that because you're letting everybody to see who you are and what you're about, and no walls, and so that alone, and the inner strength that I feel now, and the faith and the confidence, and that collaboration with spirit, it's amazing. Yeah. And I like to extend that to everybody. Now I do have something, and it's the experience that I had in Kauai and lately, and I would like to talk, if possible, about that in just briefly.
We got a bit of time.
Because I felt that I received a powerful message with it, and I would like to share that. That was the experience that it was preceded the Hopi. When it was the other solar eclipse that we have, and I was guided to go to Kauai. And just as I was leaving, I was able to connect to the person that I needed to connect, which I didn't know was, but then I connected. And we went, at that time of the eclipse, we went to different sites in Kauai. Kauai is known for having many, portals and vortexes, energetic vortexes there. And this particular one, again, pushing me out farther, from fear and from my comfort zone. I went into this place, and I was told it was a portal right in the middle of, towards the ocean. But when we went in, I was able to see there was a place that looked almost like a pedestal. It was like a circle with a rock coming, standing up from it, and I could see a beam, like a laser beam in there. And so I knew there was something special on that place. So I'm in a group, and we meditated. We did some meditating away. And it's funny because, again, it's Hawaii, the ocean is a little rough, it gets a little rough. And that place, being that also was the eclipse, the ocean was agitated. And so the waves would keep crashing into that side where the beam was. And the lady who's a shamanic practitioner there said to us, if anybody would like to go into this spot, and that was where I saw the beam, you can do so, and just let me know, and I'll take you there, and we work with the elements and see what cooperation, we may have. What I do need you to know, as you go in meditation, is that this place is known for road waves. So keep that in the back of your mind in case you have to run. Believe it or not, I was able to meditate like that, And so what happens is, I kept seeing that, it was so agitated, and there was two people that wanted to go, and so they went. She assisted them, asked for permission to enter. They entered the space, and they got soaked within an hour or two. They were soaked, and they wouldn't last more than 2 minutes, 3 minutes. They were out. They were just, okay, I received. I exchanged, and they would walk. So I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to go, because I had already gotten a lot of waves already before on another side that we were. And so I'm like, okay. So we are about to leave, and I decided to go. I said, well, I would like to go. And then she looked at me, and she said, I feel that you need to go by yourself. That is best for you to go by yourself. And I'm like, oh my God. So I go with my bag of stones and crystal skulls with me. And I say, okay. And before that, I had all this list of things, because that's how our human mind works. I had all list of all kinds of things that I wanted to bring to that moment of alignment, present, And so as I go in, what happens is I saw the door, and there was a lot of beings in there. I saw the beings that were in their working in that space, and it was so peaceful. It was very, very peaceful. And so after a couple of minutes, I ended up, going in with the permission. And so when I go in, I feel this peace, and I'm still like, ooh, because the ocean, is agitated, and I'm like, I'm gonna get it, I just know it. And then a sudden, what happens is I felt this energy, and in my inner vision, I saw this light, coming in, and the energy was so strong, and the feeling of peace and love that I experienced, I couldn't contain it within myself, and so it had to spill over, and so in that moment, the only thing I could think of, it was peace, because that's what I started to ask for, peace with it. And so I experienced peace, and I experienced a great feeling of peace that was so great, and extended out, and the only thing that I could think of, it was extending that out to the planet and to the world. And the next thing you know is that the ocean completely calmed down. It was very, very calm. And I stayed there for about 10 minutes total, and I was to tears when I left. And so when I started to think about it, about what is the meaning of this, and what I take from this, what I feel that I experienced was that, I had, like I said, I had all these things that I wanted to bring into alignment, but at the moment of really when that alignment happened, it was source. I was connected to the source and to my spirit. And when you are in that moment, you cannot think for yourself. It's a collective, so you think for the rest. And so that feeling of peace, I had to share it with the planet and the world. And that also led me to think of the energies that are coming in right now, how amazingly, willingly, how the willingness of them to cooperate and co-create with us when we are in that space, when we're coming from really from a heart, from a spirit, centeredness point. And so I think that's very important and relevant to where we are right now, because that this was just recently. And so this is very relevant to where we are right now as a collective, in the planet and where we are, so that we just get back to that center and to align ourselves with that and just, bring it out into the world. So,
Any other questions? Don't run off, but we'll close out for the film part.
okay. Thank you for having me.
We want to thank Norma De Jesus for coming and telling us of some of these experiences, and thank you for joining us on Core Concepts.